Zora Mulligan, Commissioner of Higher Education. Our team at the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development has been walking with your campus leaders since last March, when COVID-19 changed all of our lives basically overnight. We talk with your COVID teams on a weekly basis, and we check in with other leaders every month or so. One of the things that's come across most clearly in those conversations is that mental health issues are at crisis levels at every college and university around the state. Schools were struggling to provide mental health resources before the pandemic, and obviously things have only gotten harder in the last 15 months. A couple of months ago, we surveyed institutions to see what stressors are impacting their students, and what we learned probably won't surprise any of you. The top answers were depression, anxiety, financial burdens, loneliness, and isolation. And it's not just students. When I saw the survey results on what students are struggling with, I thought, yes, me too. We, as grown-ups, we are all exhausted. Many of us have lost loved ones. We're tired of people looking to us for answers to completely unanswerable questions. The workload is wearing us out. Our hearts are broken by the events that moved us and our neighbors to demonstrate last summer, and by lack of certainty about whether anything will ever really change. So there's a limit to what we can do for students when we ourselves are in a state of quiet crisis, and I hope we'll be able to take some time this summer to breathe and to heal. I also hope that we'll all take advantage of opportunities to get a little help, and that's what today's session is really about. We're grateful for our partnership with the Missouri Department of Mental Health and Show Me Hope Disaster Relief. The Show Me Hope team has been hosting regular webinars to help state staff cope through COVID-19. We've been really encouraged by the care and methods introduced during those meetings, and we've gotten great feedback from our staff. We're glad to provide some of those resources to you today. If there are other ways our department can help you and your teams, please just let us know. Take care, have a great summer, and thank you for everything you do.
Hi, I'm Rachel Jones, Manager of Trauma-Informed Treatment with the Division of Behavioral Health at the Missouri Department of Mental Health. Our Division of Behavioral Health helps Missourians who are living with mental illness and substance use disorders. Today, we're talking about mental health and student success. Thank you to our generous sponsors, Missouri Department of Mental Health, the Missouri Crisis Counseling Program, Show Me Hope, and our federal partners, the Federal Emergency Management Administration and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. We're excited for this collaboration with the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. Wow. This has been an incredible year. We've been through a lot. You've been through a lot. You must be exhausted. The emotional, mental, and physical toll of the last year may have had you in a perpetual fight and flight response for days, weeks, or months. In 3 words, could you share how you're feeling right now in our comment section? If you're comfortable dropping it in there, that would be great. You might just be surprised to see how many of you are feeling pretty much the same way. Mental health is important for you too. Though you put your students first, and we thank you for making their mental health your priority, you simply can't do the work if you aren't feeling well and balanced yourself. So today's information is just as much for you as it is for the college students that you serve in Missouri. Now, for the most part, we were surprised by the COVID-19 pandemic. Information was changing rapidly, and some of it was brand new. We had to learn things quickly, be agile and responsive, and filter through all the noise. Even though there were some unique factors specific to this worldwide pandemic, the collective psychological response to disasters isn't new. In fact, there are typical phases that people and communities go through during disasters. Right now, we're somewhere between disillusionment and reconstruction, since we've recently passed the 1-year mark of the first COVID cases in the United States. But what does that all mean? Well, first, it means that everything that you and the students that you support have been going through has been a normal part of the process. Sure, it probably didn't feel normal, but you aren't alone in what you're going through. Also, knowing that there are typical phases helps us prepare for the next potential disaster. And unfortunately, there will be another disaster. Knowing what to expect in the future can improve our readiness and our response, which eases anxiety and confusion as much as possible. I mentioned that we were somewhere between disillusionment and reconstruction phases. So let's break those down a bit so that you know what the characteristics are of each. During the disillusionment phase, communities and individuals realize the limits of disaster assistance. As optimism turns to discouragement and stress continues to take a toll, negative reactions like physical exhaustion or substance use start to surface. The increasing gap between need and assistance leads to feelings of abandonment, especially with communities returning to business as usual. There may be an increased demand for service, and as individuals and communities become ready to accept that support. The disillusionment phase can last months or even years. It's often extended by one or more trigger events, and usually that includes the anniversary of the disaster. This leads us to the reconstruction phase. This is characterized by an overall feeling of recovery. Individuals and communities begin to assume responsibility for rebuilding their lives, and people adjust to the new normal while continuing to grieve their losses. The reconstruction phase often begins around the anniversary of the disaster, and it may continue for some time beyond that. And in some cases, following catastrophic events, the reconstruction phase may last for years. The Missouri Crisis Counseling Program, which we call Show Me Hope, supports the emotional needs of all Missourians, regardless of age, income, or location. The CCP resources are free of charge because they're funded by FEMA. All services are virtual, and they follow the best practice guidelines of pandemic disaster response. They're also located in every county across the state, and they can support any disaster, including pandemics or other natural disasters or man-made disasters. Local counselors deliver information and education on various things like stress management, coping techniques, problem-solving skills, connecting to community resources and services, and building resilience for now and for the future. A few Missourians may need professional services beyond what the CCP can provide. In those cases, they'll be connected to local resources. The Show Me Hope program is designed to be a temporary help through disasters. There are other resources available to people as well. But before we talk about mental health resources, let's talk about mental health. Did you know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month? Here in Missouri, we're hoping to educate as many people as possible about this important aspect of overall health. Mental health is a broad term that explains how the brain functions. Now, most people think of illness when they hear the term mental health. And because of that association, it can be really scary or uncomfortable to talk about it, to even think about it, and definitely to try to figure out what to do about it. But what if I told you that mental health was about illness and wellness? It's a continuum. Everyone falls on it somewhere. And it can move around a bit depending on your situation or your life circumstances. So on one end of the continuum is signs, symptoms, and disability related to mental illness. Anxiety, depression, mood swings, or suicidal behaviors, panic attacks, and other conditions would fall on that end. In some cases, it's so severe that it can lead to death. But on the other side of the continuum is about awareness, education, and a growth mindset. And that all leads to high levels of wellness. Somewhere in the middle is a neutral point. A person may not necessarily show signs of illness or wellness. The wellness paradigm covers the entire continuum, and the treatment paradigm covers just the illness side of the continuum. So when we talk about mental health, we're talking about illness and wellness, which impacts everyone in some way. Years ago, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration provided a model called the 8 Dimensions of Wellness. It expanded the perspective of what it means to be well. Looking at 8 domains that impact everyone's life, this model clearly shows that wellness is found in a person's social emotional health, their environment at school, work, and home, and physical and financial health too. All of these domains are interconnected. So when a person's doing well, it impacts and spreads into those other domains. They build on each other. That's why it's so important to take a holistic, culturally sensitive approach to discussing wellness with college students and the staff that support them. Now, since we're talking about wellness, we also have to talk about resilience. How a person bounces back from a challenging situation and functions as good or better than they did before the challenging situation. That's what I mean when I say resilience. A person starts out just trying to survive a situation, but over time, they can thrive and grow, which eventually leads to them adjusting and trying new things that are healthy. Then they're recovering and doing well. Sometimes they want to just use their resilience experience to help others and advocate. This is the power of peer connections, which definitely applies to college students and your workforce. Research has really helped us understand what makes up resilience. Several things like a person's strengths and determination, or their sense of humor and their optimism. But also, they may need to learn things like what's in their control, what are their past successes that they can learn from, how can they ask for help, and what types of goals can they set to help them maintain good mental health and success. Even if people know these things and they think they've got a pretty good handle on them, sometimes you just need reminders or coaching to walk through them again. Especially when people are feeling stress, these resilience skills don't come naturally. Through this partnership between the Department of Mental Health and the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development, we conducted a brief survey of leaders at some of Missouri's colleges and universities. We wanted to know what the top stressors were impacting your students on campus. Here's what we found out. Over the last year, the top stressors of college students in Missouri were anxiety, depression, isolation, financial stress and burdens, and stress related to social justice and hate crimes, which impacts both U.S. and international students on campus. We also wanted to know, what are your campuses currently offering college students to help promote mental health and wellness? And here's what we found out. Counseling services and access to mental health professionals was the highest ranked response. These are offered as one-on-one, support groups, couples counseling, offered virtually or in person. Some campuses have specific supports for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and international students to address special issues brought about by racism, discrimination, and minoritized groups. Other campuses reported the use of psychiatric medication management and nurse practitioner services. A few mentioned that they may very important connections with the local Department of Mental Health contracted mental health provider. That's the provider in their community who can offer more long-term mental health supports for students. Fitness activities are offered through your campus recreation centers, scheduled physical health activities, and through some social engagement events. Some campuses also identified the financial aid office, financial wellness classes, and web-based apps as helpful resources for mental health too. Because some campuses have partnerships with local agencies, they provide social service supports like food pantries or a local resource list for housing or utilities and United Way 211 resources. One campus reported using peer educators to help support student mental health and wellness, and another one reported their plan to start a peer support program soon. Even though this was the least popular response, peer supports has the potential to change the landscape of your campus. It's a strategy that promotes trauma-informed campuses, but we'll get into that a little later. Our current reality is that college campuses are growing, but can't keep up the pace of having on-campus mental health professionals who can provide long-term support for this young adult population. It makes sense. There's a shortage of mental health professionals across the entire nation. It's difficult to hire and retain professional staff, and with the uptake of telebehavioral health services, many agencies are now competing with businesses in other states offering attractive salaries and benefits to those mental health professionals. And young adults have so many needs, like doing well in their classes, choosing the right major, working to afford college, dealing with family and friend problems, past and current trauma exposure, remembering all the moving parts that they need to manage and learn how to cope and communicate. Ugh, that's a lot going on in their brains that are still developing. So what can be done? Well, let's look to Active Minds, which is a leading voice for college mental health. Active Minds is a national nonprofit organization which utilizes students' voices to raise mental health awareness among college students. It develops and supports student-run chapters on colleges and university campuses that promote a dialogue around issues of mental health and educate the student body about available resources in and around the campus community. Their research has shown some pretty interesting trends. 67% of young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 that have had anxiety and depression symptoms do not seek treatment or they delay treatment. That treatment is delayed for up to 10 years on average. About half of all adult mental health conditions occur before the age of 14, and 75% of them occurred by the age of 24. Since the brain is fully developed somewhere in the mid-20s, this is an important trend to recognize so we can provide early interventions, awareness, and education for all youth and young adults. And when it comes to suicidal thoughts and feelings, 67% of college students will first reach out to family and friends. They conducted a survey of over 2,000 college students at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. Let's take a look at what they said. According to the students, the most important things for school leaders to be thinking about in the short term and long term for student mental health during the pandemic include things like increased academic support, such as leniency, accommodations, and flexibility. More mental health resources. This includes increasing the investment in counseling and coping resources. A focus on soft skills like empathy, compassion, communication, understanding, and validation for the burdens that students are experiencing. providing more opportunities for social connection, replacing canceled events or services and classes with virtual ones, and engaging in long-term planning, preparing to help students heal and recover when they return, and put in place improved practices and protocols to more easily pivot to remote learning in case of another similar crisis. What do you think about their list? Are these things you're already doing on your campus? If not, what do you think it would take to start moving in that direction? Those student responses are right in line with trauma-informed schools and campuses. If you aren't familiar with this concept, please look into it. Trauma-informed campuses are not just about helping students get access to mental health treatment. It's also about how to support the workforce, how to create a campus climate of equity, trauma knowledge, peer support, and how to build community partnerships. To learn more and download the Missouri model for trauma-informed schools, you can visit www.desi.mo.gov. Here at DMH, we've got some ideas that might help too. Let's begin with mental health first aid and youth mental health first aid. If you aren't familiar with them, these are evidence-based trainings that give people basic information to help them recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health and substance use concerns. It can prepare friends and family, coworkers, or neighbors to feel more confident in helping someone who has a mental health concern to get access to informal or formal supports. Who interacts with students on your campus when they're in distress besides the mental health staff? Students come into contact with several people, and they may find support from the most unexpected adults on campus. You might be surprised to learn just how many people are concerned and might take an interest in becoming a mental health first aider to help students. Students can also benefit from this type of program to offer support. What if your campus offered this as a class credit to students in certain disciplines? That could include the obvious ones like psychology or social work, human development, nursing, pre-med, criminal justice, but the list could go on and on. Students could use this training to develop a peer support program on your campus that changes the culture and makes mental health a priority. Mental Health First Aid is brought to Missourians free of charge by the Missouri Department of Mental Health. This free interactive training is valued at about $170 per person. The trainings are all virtual, and you can sign up today by going to www.mhfamissouri.org. Register now. Did you know that the Department of Mental Health contracts with 25 agencies that provide mental health services to people in every county of the state? This means that wherever your campus is located, there is a DMH contracted community mental health center that can provide long-term mental health support for the college students and staff. They can help determine eligibility for services. Some will be based on insurance coverage, but some are on a sliding scale fee or based on income. Their crisis services, outpatient clinics, and school-based programs can help if someone has a mental health or substance use condition. Please visit our website and select the map locator to find your county and your community mental health center that serves your area. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is another helpful resource for students who have thoughts, plans, or ideas about suicide. This is a 24/7 free and confidential support for crisis intervention. 1-800-273-TALK. The Missouri Suicide Prevention Resource Center is also a great resource that's local. that has education and crisis services. There's even training for professionals that includes online courses, virtual learning labs, micro-learning, webinars, and more. You can check them out at www.sprc.org and search for Missouri. Maybe texting is more convenient and comfortable for college students on your campus. They can text our MoSafe to 741-741, which will connect them to a trained crisis counselor who can help. In Missouri, we also have a 24-hour access crisis intervention line. This will help people get into direct contact within their local community mental health center, and they can schedule appointments for screenings, assessments, help them fill out insurance, and other services. You can visit www.mohelpnow.org for more information. And of course, there are several ways that your students can connect to the Missouri Show Me Hope program. Call, text, or visit the website. We have several valuable resources available at moshowmehope.org. We've been recording our virtual wellness webinars for almost a whole year. They're called DMH Cares, which you can find on the website. We've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. Let's do a quick recap. You've been working hard to support college students during one of the most challenging years on record. Mental health and wellness is on a continuum, and it impacts you just as much as the students that you support. The 8 dimensions of wellness gives us a good guide to focus on important domains that contribute to overall wellness in our life. Building resilience on a regular basis is an important part of recovery and prevention of mental health concerns. Your campuses are already providing valuable mental health and wellness support, but there are more needs than supports right now. Some creative solutions are to listen to the student voices. Let's understand what makes sense to them and what they need. Consider rolling out a mental health first aid training on your campus. Maybe start a peer support program. Look into connecting with your local Department of Mental Health contracted community mental health clinic to get access to long-term support for students. And please use our crisis hotlines, text lines, and our Show Me Hope resources. Together, we can help students succeed and maintain good mental health. We're here to help you. To learn more, visit dmh.mo.gov. Thank you for watching this presentation. I'm Rachel Jones with the Department of Mental Health. Take care.